Hello and welcome to Hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino. Hashtag No Limits is about people who have had limits placed upon them by society, but who have busted through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know who we are, but not what we will be." And I believe that to be 100% true. And I believe that there is no better example of that than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. The caterpillar literally dissolves into its cells and then reforms into the butterfly, then has to struggle and fight to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to fly. And just like that caterpillar turning into the butterfly, busting through those limits is not an easy task. It's not easy for humans. It's not easy for animals or insects. And so on my show, Hashtag No Limits, I interview people who are busting through those limits as well as people who are helping them bust through those limits. And that brings me to my guest today, Witek, Nowosiad. Sorry, I wanted to try my best to get it right. I hope I did. Welcome, Witek, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. You did well with my name. Yes.
Oh, great, great. So, Witek, you are here kind of representing two different aspects: your own family, but then you also have Beyond Karate, as we have down on the banner. So, if you would tell us a little bit about your family and how limits were placed upon your family and your child specifically first, and then we'll get into Beyond Karate.
Yes. So I have two beautiful daughters. They're young adults. The older one, Asha, will be 22 later next month, and Nikki, the younger one, is 20. And Nikki happened to be born with a genetic disability called Down syndrome.
Okay.
And
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, just saying that we uh, known that Nikki had disability since day one. That was diagnosed when the day she was born, and we've lived with it and struggled with it. And I think now we can say we have kind of figured out how to live with it.
Ah, that's wonderful. So you said she's 20,
Yes.
correct? So, and you said she was diagnosed when she was born. So you didn't know during the pregnancy that there was a chance that she would be born with Down syndrome?
We opted not to do the test. We were convinced to have her no
Hmm.
matter what. So we did not. We decided not to do the amniocentesis test to figure out because there is a test specific, and then after the test there is an option. Do you want to abort or not?
Right.
And that was not something that we chose to do. We were 100% convinced to have her and welcome to this world and love her no matter what, uh, how she will come in. And that's what we did.
That's good. That's wonderful. Yeah, and so when she was born, so can you kind of walk me through a little bit of what that was like when she was born, and kind of the reaction of the medical team and you and your wife, and just kind of how everything transpired when that all kind of happened.
Well, that was one of the darker days in my life, in our lives. I remember to this day vividly how, because she was born, and then our pediatrician, who was on a standby, he came in and he was nervous himself. I could tell, and he was like, "Why don't you have a seat?" And then he kind of told us it was within hours of her being born, and then I felt, you know, profound kind of it was the room felt dark even though it wasn't, and then there was profound also isolation even between my wife at that time and myself, and it was just heavy when somebody brings you news like that. There is this kind of a beautiful story you might have heard. It's easily available on the web, the going to Holland, and
Hmm. Yeah.
So it is like that. You land. You're planning for 6 months or a year to go to the Italy. You're planning to have a beautiful baby and so on, and all the excitement and hope, and there's a very little anxiety when you hope to go through the birth just fine. But and all that happened. There was no complications, nothing. But then, as the story goes, you land, and the captain announces, "Welcome to Holland," versus to Italy, and it's like, what?
Right.
I was
Right.
supposed to be in Italy. I started speaking in Italian. I know
Right.
several phrases in Italian. I've done all this preparation, but you're in Holland and you can't change that, and you have to first kind of go through the shock and anger and kind of grief of letting the dream of Italy go, and then slowly learning that there are beautiful things in Holland as well. They have tulips and they have windmills and but that doesn't happen right away. It takes time,
Right.
and that was exactly the same. And that story just depicts the shock and the grief and the disappointment that every new parent, and myself included, feels when you're giving a news your child has a disability.
Yeah. And I'm sure it doesn't matter if that happens at birth or later in life. And for anyone who isn't familiar with what he is talking about, it's called Welcome to Holland. And I believe it's by Emily Kingsley. I'm not 100% sure if that's the
Probably.
author, but that's the name that I'm associating with it. But yeah, it is one that I have shared multiple times with families that I've worked with. I do another podcast or video stream, whatever you want to call what this is, um, and it's called Friday with Fran, and we have shared it on there many times as well because it does do such a beautiful job of depicting what happens, and a little bit about that experience. So you bring her home, and you introduced her to her big sister, and then you started introducing her to family and friends, I presume. And um, now I've not seen a picture of her, so I don't know. But does she have physical characteristics of Down syndrome? So when you see her, do people kind of go, "Oh, okay"?
She has a mild characteristics, so she could. Some people who don't pay much attention might not notice, and just by the physical characteristics, her physical features are not as strong as some individuals with Down syndrome.
Okay. So
But
what was it then when she was born that the doctors thought that she needed to be tested?
I think it's a standard test that they do, but also there is one physical that I have learned is, uh, like uh, it's kind of interesting, and you never know. Our nose and ears are aligned. Bottom of our ears is aligned. Individuals with Down syndrome is not. So that was the first clue that gave them
Okay.
that they need to do the blood test. So that just by having a little bit more medical knowledge about that particular genetic disorder, told them that they need to take it a step further because not all the physical visual signs were not there. So they did the
Okay.
blood test after that.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever heard about that one, that our nose and the bottom of our ears are level. I'm trying to look now. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
guess mine are and yours are. But that's interesting. So that's just another, like you said, having that little bit of medical knowledge of, knowing that your nose and the bottom of your nose and your bottom of your earlobe are supposed to be level with each other. Okay. So yeah, so I'm sorry, go back to, and now you're introducing her to family and friends and neighbors and
Well, it was we have so we are Catholics. So as Catholics, we so the first few weeks were just kind of, I would say, mm, regular because you don't have visitors right away. But
right.
then it took, our first big celebration is when we have kind of a baptism, which is welcoming her to the community. And we were just overwhelmed with the support of our friends. We had so many friends show up and show their support, and even give kind of a, not only cards but also give gifts and monetary kind of offerings. And it was just amazing how the community came together to support us, because everybody realized this is a greater challenge than having a newborn is a challenge, and it's a joy as well. Is it both sides? And but we were our first kind of a official welcoming, bringing her to the introducing her to the community, to the wider beyond just the closest family friends. Was the support was just overwhelming, and it was people really, our friends and family, came together and offered the support.
That's wonderful to hear, especially 20 years ago. I think it's getting a little better now than what it was even 20 years ago, but it sounds like you had a great support system, and that definitely helps that transition of going to Holland instead of Italy
Yes.
make it a little bit
Yeah.
easier and more manageable. Um, so, were there any things that the doctors told you when they gave you the diagnosis, or in follow up visits, that she would not be able to do? Did they prepare you for the worst, or did they give you, "Hey, we don't know. It could be this, but it could be this."
Yeah, we did not have a horrible experience of the medical professionals telling you that your child will never be able to do this or to do that. And it was more of a we're gonna have to kind of learn. And our pediatrician uh, actually it just happened. I think that's God's kind of providence over her and us and our family. And our pediatrician was a founder of a Down syndrome clinic at the Major Children's Hospital in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
So when we brought her to him for her first checkup, and he knew ahead of that. It
Mhm.
wasn't him who came to the hospital. He they have an on-call system, so somebody else from the group. So we were really blessed. And when we came, he had the list already ready for us. This is what you have to do. These are the tests. You have to check her heart, check her spine, because those are. So he had a roadmap for us uh,
That's wonderful.
to, as far as the medical care and the physical care, to what we need to do. And so the first big thing was to check her heart, because 50% of individuals with Down syndrome have a heart defect, and a lot of them pass away because of that. And so within, again, I also happened to be working at a children's hospital. So within a month, we had an appointment at the cardiologist, and guess what? I showed up a week ahead of the our scheduled appointment. I was so anxious. I was like, I come to the check-in desk back then, and then I said, I have an appointment. It was a Wednesday. I remember it was a Wednesday. And I have an appointment for today. And it's like, kind of, they check, they look, and it's like, can you have a seat? We need to check on something. And then they come back, sir, we don't have you on the schedule for today. So what do you mean? I have it today. It's a Wednesday. Yes,
Oh.
but it's next Wednesday. I was so anxious and eager to hear if there was a complication with her heart,
Right.
and luckily there hasn't been. So she is physically healthy. That
That's
takes
wonderful. Praise God.
one medication, but didn't have any major complications with her heart or the spine, because that determines also the activities she can participate in or not. And yes.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that, and for giving a little bit of the sort of scientific or the medical part of it too, is, that it, the rates of heart defects. And so what was her schooling like? Did she need an IEP or any kind of 504 accommodations, or was she doing okay academically?
Yes, so that's where kind of the challenges started with. Well, I think the school part was has been for a while a big challenge. Yes, so we started her. Well, I live in Texas, so we had a program. She was enrolled in a program for kids from with disabilities from 0 to 3, the preschool. And then here in Texas, kids with disabilities can be overseen or be enrolled in school programs beginning 3 years of age. And so until 3, she received all the services at home. And then we started her the I remember the acronym PPCD, but I don't remember what it stands for exactly. But that was the program when she started at 3 with the school. And so so and all of that was focused on physical therapy, speech therapy, all kinds of therapies. From 0 to basically 5, occupational therapy. All of that was focused on therapies, and that went fine. But once we started with her at, I decided, because I believe in community, so I wanted her to be with the kids in her local community, where with her friends from the neighborhood. And so we enrolled her, and there wasn't any big issues with that at our local elementary school. She went to the kindergarten, uh, and I was probably first in the history of the school. Uh, the teacher's helper, the I don't know what
Oh, a paraprofessional?
yeah, I was the it was the usually it's a mother, it's a woman, and I was the
Uh-huh.
first man who would be the teacher assistant to help the kids. We organize the Christmas party. Basically, your job is to organize all the parties.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so the teacher can focus on teaching. And so I was there, helping organize Christmas party. And we decided for Nikki to uh, so she did the kindergarten twice, to kind of give her a little bit more strength and set her up for kind of for to be successful down the road. And uh, as the and at that age, the school was very welcoming, was very they had she was in the other school in the school with the other kids in the classrooms. She was pulled for speech therapy and others, and she loved that. She was, you can say, it never works well, but she was mobile. She didn't have any physical challenges. She was developing her speech. She started speaking when she was 4, and started walking when she was 2. So by age 5, 6, she was using words and some sentences, and she did well. We had a great kindergarten teacher, and uh, first grade teacher. As she grew, the differences became greater, and the challenges became greater. Uh, it was always a bit of a challenge when she needed to have her individual's educational plan goals set, and it was always a challenge how much time she can spend with her peers in a general classroom setting, and how much time she can she needs individually to keep up with reading and math, and oftentimes there's no it's hard to tell sometimes how that happens and how that. But I kept her in. She was in, and she did well. She went through the elementary school very well with her peers, and then we went on to the middle school. And the middle school wasn't as what do I say, as welcoming to her. Yes, they were welcoming in a general way, but as far as the details of setting her up, they basically wanted to set her up 100% in a separated classroom, and I didn't think that was what she needed. And that was when I uh, decided as her advocate, because the IEP meetings, the ARD meetings, we as parents are invited and we set the goals, and it's all focused. School is September through May. It's 9 months, and they only see or not only the focus is education. It's school, but I wanted them to know Nikki more than just what she basically cannot do at school. So I put this PowerPoint together because at that time she was writing courses, she was dancing, she was doing karate, she was a younger sister, and she was doing a lot of things. And I put that in a PowerPoint, and I said, let's just take a time and get to know Nikki versus just looking at the little important goals. But it's only a small kind of a view of who she is. I wanted everyone to have a bigger picture of who she was. And I did that. And it's like one of the teachers commented afterwards, I never see any parents do that. And I took that as a compliment because
Absolutely.
uh, that and we had to kind of go back and forth with the IEP group, and then uh, so after the middle school, I decided to take her to a private special education school. So we kind of left the public school system because we felt her needs, educational and social needs, were not met adequately.
Yeah. And I've heard very similar stories to what you just described of moving from home based therapies to the school setting, to the primary, to the middle school. And it's interesting. The home based therapies, someone described it in my book that I wrote. That it's like all love and fluff and everything is wonderful and it's all all about your child, and then you go from that into the school setting and suddenly you have to justify all the services that your child needs, and you have to almost fight in a lot of instances to compel the school system that they need to provide different services. And then in the primary grades, you do the teachers are much more, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a former special education teacher, and so I saw this with the teachers that I worked with in the gen ed, that the primary teachers had a more affectionate, more I don't want to say student centered, because that's not what it was, but it was and I don't want to say that they cared more, but you're right there. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's a different approach at the primary. And I don't know if that's because in the primary grades, typically teachers have a grade, but when you move up to middle school and high school, the teachers teach a subject. And then that subject becomes more of a focus, and they don't have the time always to get to know the students like the primary teachers do. And maybe that's the way it is it's a connection piece that the primary teachers that I've worked with at least seem to be able to develop more than the middle school teachers were able to, because the middle school teachers were rotating class after class after class, so they didn't see the same child all day every day like the primary teachers did. And I understand that that's not the way it is in every district all across the country, so maybe that's not the right way to describe what happens, but that does seem to be the progression for the majority of families with a child with a disability, at least that I've experienced. So it's, I don't know, maybe if that, I don't know if that's something we need to work on, or if that's, something we need to train teachers better while they're at university, or exactly, or if it's even necessarily a bad thing. It seems like it is, because like you said, it seems like the teachers don't know so much more about the students, and that was
Yes,
beautiful how you said it. She's not just a child with an IEP. She's a younger sister. She's a daughter. She's a horseback rider. She's a dancer. She's all these different things.
And then the reality of our public, education kicks in too when you have a one teacher for 20 students, and maybe one aide, but then your child with disability needs a dedicated aide, maybe not for every class, but that's when the resources are lacking. And Nikki was always perceived as a higher functioning. Oh, she doesn't need an aide, so we could never uh, justify for an aide in the school for her. So she was kind of, in a way, on her own, so to speak. The teacher or an aide would pay attention to her, and but not, and would care, but the sad reality that there is just not uh, adequate level of resources for individuals with disabilities. And I'm making a general statement. It varies from school to school,
Sure.
but that is my experience, and I hear that from a lot of parents, that there is a greater need for more resources for individuals with disabilities.
Yeah, and that is something that I as well hear across the board. And over the summer, I participated in a legislative summit. And when the federal law was put into place in 1975, the federal government guaranteed that they would help with 40% of the increased costs to provide education to all students with disabilities. They have never reached that amount. They have never fully funded that 40% that they promised. And in most years, I think the average is around 15%.
Yeah. And
So there absolutely are not enough resources. And that's
so
very
that's what
sad
I was
because,
experiencing, and that is more visible as your children with disabilities grow older. Uh, it's they have a greater, they need a bigger shoes. They need more resources. Just a simple thing of the bigger clothes. They also need more help with the amount of education they are receiving, and they need an aid. They need a help. They still need speech therapy at 15. It's not just for the little kids,
right.
and as in a general public education setting, those services are actually decreased as your child gets older.
Mhm. Yeah, that's been my experience as well here in Illinois, where I am. That the older the child gets, the the therapists say, well, the problems are there's we've gone as far as we can go. Or well, the needs that your child has are not in school anymore. What you're asking for is outside of school, and we don't have to help with that necessarily. And that's actually not how I understand it, because IEPs are written for further education, employment, and independent living.
Yes.
So you're obviously that independent living piece of it and the employment piece of it obviously are for outside of school. So, yeah, I think that's something that our national organizations for our therapists need to understand when they're training their therapists. Because I've had the therapist say, "Well, my national speech organization says I only have to help for what's at school, or my national physical therapy or occupational therapy." So we need to do a better job in our trainings of our teachers and of our therapists of what their real role is with a child with an IEP.
And that's, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, I was done.
No, and that's exactly when your child is heading to, when Nikki was heading to high school, my uh, the school is supposed to prepare your child for adulthood, and not just in being able to do calculus and reading, but also in functional living.
Right.
That's why we send kids to school. It's what is the role of the school is to help prepare the child for adult independent living. And I felt like the general public school was not uh, able to do that with limited resources. So that's when I moved her to a private setting school, private special education school, and that's exactly what happened. That school, and also it's here in Texas, high schools are humongous, like
Mhm.
2,000, 3,000, 4,000. There's something's moving behind you.
Yeah, my sign is
The
to that
caterpillar.
side of me.
So it's huge, and so I moved her to the special education school. It's a small school comparing to the public high schools of 160 students, but it's also large for the special education standards, and that is the focus of the school is preparing children, young, I mean teenagers and young adults for functioning in a society. They start their volunteer employment in the society. They are out in a community every day. They have, that was the biggest kind of draw, and what that school offers is she's in a community every day, volunteering, working. She used to work in a opera, Dallas Opera Symphony House, just
Oh
working in the
wow.
office, stuffing the envelopes, but learning also the work ethic and the etiquette, what you do and don't do at the workplace, working, learning to sign in and sign out, just those functional work skills. And she worked in a uh, huge kind of a donation store where she was sorting things. She loves sorting. She's good at sorting.
Yeah.
So she used to do that, but also did math and reading and social studies. And so the the school, that school, their focus was, she's still in that school, is focused on preparing them beyond she graduates, and that's the biggest blessing and the gift of that school. And I think that's where the public schools need a little bit more, uh, maybe revisioning what what is the expectation from them. It is to prepare them for what's after school. It's not they graduate and then what. Well, uh, typical kids have a lot of options. Kids with disabilities don't have that many options. Very few go to college. Most of them need to be prepared to work. And as you know, unfortunately, uh, I believe it's over 80% of adult individuals with disabilities don't work. Uh, and that's the school years. And she's now, like you said, the feeling when they are little, everybody's focused on them. The home therapies, it's all about them. And I have the same feeling now when she's back at that special education school, to where she's not in a back room, kind of separate from her peers. She is the center of attention. She is the main classroom and that's what the school is about. So that's as a parent, wonderful feeling to be, to know your child. Everybody at school, on the staff, the teachers, everybody works for your child to be successful, and
Yeah.
everybody's focused on your child. So I am happy that she's back in that kind of environment, and I am grateful. I mean, private schools are not cheap. There is a tuition, but
Right.
I'm grateful that I can provide that for her, and that's uh, I think she's in a great environment right now.
Yeah. And that is wonderful that you were able to provide that. But as you said, not everybody can do that because it is expensive, and we need to be better again, at helping our schools provide what they are supposed to be providing, and not reducing those services, um, and also, now that she's 20, is she still at the private school? Will they let her attend?
She is here, she is in a post, she can be in the educational system till she's
Okay.
21.
Right.
And it's they call it a vocational program or transition program,
Mhm.
where the entire focus is on kind of a post school job preparation.
Right.
They
Yeah.
still do academics, but now academics are, as far as the time, are secondary. The primary are the job skills.
Yeah. And so when you moved her to the private school, what, I mean, and you mentioned a few of them, what kinds of things do you think that maybe you were told, or it was hinted, or it was insinuated through the public system that she wouldn't be able to do, that once she got the supports that she needed, she has been able to flourish and do the things.
See, the major difference was that in the regular kind of a public system, in elementary and more so in a middle school, the entire focus was on what she cannot do. Or she cannot multiply, or she cannot add over 20, or she cannot, she's in the 6th grade, but she reads on the 2nd grade level, and so on. And then just creating the IEP goals that would address those deficiencies. And you might think, well, that's okay, but I don't know if she ever is going to read more than on a 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th grade level. So it's kind of,
Right.
after a while, it becomes kind of useless to have that IP. We need to focus more on a functional reading, functional math, functional skills. Again, what it will help her down the road in life. Like if she gonna go grocery shopping, what kind of math skills does she know? She's not gonna be able to calculate in math in her head to subtract 2150 minus 1129. I would have hard time calculating that, but I can. But
Right.
she will not be able. So what is she gonna do? Well, teach her calculator.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised. The school was like, oh no, we can't teach calculator, we need to keep. It's like, what do you mean? She's not gonna be able to. She needs to learn how to use the calculator. Oh, we don't use calculators in school. And that was the problem. So like, I don't care. She needs to learn how to use the calculator. So because that's the how she's gonna function in a society. My job is to prepare her to function in a society, and I want to partner with school. I understand 1st, 2nd grade. Yes, let's 3rd, 4th, but in a middle school, some things have to go. Calculator needs to come in, and that was like the battle of the century. So like, I don't understand.
Yeah. And
uh,
and I'll be honest, as a teacher, I had that thought myself. No, we want to make them, able to do these things on their own. And I'll date myself a little bit. I was of that, well, you're not always going to have a calculator with you. Well, now everybody
oh, they
does have a
will.
calculator.
Yes, yes,
Some people it's on their wrist even, and
yes.
and so yeah, I mean, as times and things and technology evolve, we need as teachers to be aware. I'm a master IEP coach, and my mentor really called, and she didn't specifically do it because I was there, but this was something that I spent too much time on as well. Was teaching my students about pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, what their value are, what they're worth, how much,
Yeah.
what they look like, what they're called. And I haven't been in teaching for 5 years, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace, but the idea that we hardly ever use coins anymore. I mean, the majority of the population uses a debit card, or now it's, oh, we'll just transfer money with some app, Venmo or PayPal or Zelle or whatever, or we shop online. And so it's not so much having to spend time on those pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters as it is, like you said, figuring out, well, they need to know that they need money in a bank account before they can go buy something at the store.
Yes, yes. And another, and but as they grow older, like I would say the middle school, beyond middle school, in my mind, it has to shift to a functional, what they are going to need to be successful in the society, in a community. The same thing with writing. Oh, she needs to write a full paragraph. Well, yes, but I also need to teach. I need you to teach her how to text. What do you mean? Well, because that's how she will make friends. If she doesn't know how to text, she's not going to be able to know how to make friends. That is and schools don't think that way, or a lot of teachers don't think that way. My job, again, as a parent, is to make sure she has friends, she's connected, because that will be a huge part of what will make her happy, and not be isolated. And bottom line, she doesn't need to write a paragraph to connect with her friend. She needs to be
Right.
able to write to spell correctly and to type and to write. So I'm not simplifying or diminishing what schools can teach. She still writes paragraphs, she still reads books, and needs to write. Those have a place, and she needs to do that. I'm in full support. My mom was a teacher of it was back in Poland, Polish literature. So I know she needs to write paragraphs and read books. But in addition to, that's what I'm talking to, she needs to have the functional skills of how to function in a society, in a community, because at the end, that's who's going to love her, who's going to support her, who's going to challenge her. And that's where she will be post school.
Right. Yeah, that is so beautifully said and so well spoken of the ideas and the thoughts. And so I want to shift now a little bit. I want to still continue to talk about your daughter, but how everything that you experienced with the public schools helped you decide about Beyond Karate and what Beyond Karate is and what it does and what it focuses on and just what you've got coming up in a few weeks. I know you've got a big event coming up soon. We want to make sure to talk about that.
So Beyond Karate, in short, is a martial arts school for individuals with disabilities. And I teach only I focus 100% on, and that is the background. As I said, in the big high school, she's in a self-contained, that's the clinical word, self-contained classroom, where everybody else has the rest of the school for themselves, and they are in a just the language is just I don't like the language. How would you want your child to be in a self-contained classroom?
Right.
That doesn't feel fine. So I created a school that is 100% dedicated to the individuals with disabilities. Like the school she's in is 100% dedicated. I will teach. I have some siblings who want to do it alongside, but it's 100%. Most the martial arts schools will take some really high functioning individuals with disabilities and teach them, and they will usually last 2, 3, 4 years. But what happens? They don't know how to promote them. They don't have a path for them to graduate the high school and go to college, i.e., to get the black belt. And that's what I have done with Beyond Karate. I have created a path, a curriculum. There's a general curriculum, there's an adapted curriculum for everyone. I believe everyone can learn, but everyone needs certain support and maybe adaptation and or modification to be successful in that journey. And that's what I have done in Beyond Karate. In my sensei, karate instructor is called sensei, I have created, we are part of the larger group. I have took our curriculum for typical individuals and have adapted that for our school. So we have the same belt system. Some students who are able follow the same curriculum that their peers, typical peers. They learn the same moves, the same katas, with one difference. It might take them longer. And that also came from my pediatrician. He said it is so good that Nikki has an older sister, because she will learn from her a lot, both good and bad. Now I can say as a
Right.
pediatrician. And that came true when she was like 2 years old, 3 years old maybe. So we had a slide with the, like a lot of families have, in a backyard with a little ladder to climb and then slide down. It wasn't bigger than 5 feet, so it wasn't large. And my older one would just go up on the ladder and slide down, up and down for half an hour. Nikki was sitting in the backyard on the grass observing, and I was just watching this. And that was a great educational lesson for me. Nikki was just observing it, her sister, and her sister was just up and down, sliding. And then she was done. Once she was done, Nikki got up, walked to the slide, climbed the stairs, took her 3 times longer, sat on the top of that slide for at least 5 minutes, but then she went down. and she did it.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that's cool.
that's what we do in Beyond Karate. I use the same curriculum that the typical peers have in our system, and I let the student tell me how much they need to observe, how much time they need to climb, how much time they need between promotion from one belt to the other belt, what they need, what kind of support and maybe teaching adaptation they need to be successful to achieve the move. I don't simplify it for them. I provide needed educational resources and techniques so they can master the move that they need to master to be promoted to the next level. And I think
That's
that's the success of Beyond Karate. We started 8 years ago with 4 students, one student being my daughter. And that's another kind of what motivated, that's part of the story, because I love martial arts. I was inspired by Bruce Lee.
cool.
Giving credit to the greatest as a young teenager, but never had a chance to do that. So I did that as a young adult, and I signed up my older typical daughter for the regular class at the rec center in the neighborhood, and I went with her and I watched the class, and we came back next week and I signed up myself.
That's awesome.
I was so impressed, and I said, "This is it. This is my time. I'm doing it myself too." So we did that. We both got our black belts, but Nikki came along too, and she would observe the class, and she would maybe do some moves on the side, imitated the moves, and then my teacher, he was very open and still is, and asked, "Do you think she would want to join the class?" And Nikki was kind of reluctant, but after a few months, I kind of said, "Why don't we give her a uniform, a gi, and see what will happen?" And we did that. We gave her an old used uniform, and that was the game changer, because she knew when she had a uniform, she belonged to the class. She was part of the class. And then when she had a uniform, she was able to stay in a class for 80% of the time and keep moving the move, and that was the game changer. And that's when a few months after that I started Beyond Karate, uh, and and again, and that's the when language matters. So that's again going to the IAP goals, focusing on the deficiencies. I would say the in the instance of karate that she, quotation mark, she couldn't keep up with her typical peers. And that is true. However, that focuses on her deficiency. What
Mhm.
I say, to be successful in karate, Nikki couldn't be in a regular group with her peers. She needed a group. She needed an educational setting with additional resources and more and a different kind of educational strategies to be able to be successful, to do the same moves that her typical peers do. And she did. She and others followed general curriculum all the way from the white to the black belt.
That's
And that
amazing. That's
and so
awesome that you did that.
that's what we do in Beyond Karate. We uh, offer that kind of a learning environment, and that's where the students with disabilities in our martial arts school experience their ability, their they know that they will be challenged. They know they will, but they also know they will receive enough support and different strategies to make them successful to learn the high kind of techniques and forms in karate.
That's awesome. So I'm going to share the screen. I want to share your website and have you talk a little bit about the big event that's coming up.
Thank you. Yes, so the big event is coming on October 23rd, and this is a summer camp we did. So this is it, our inclusive martial arts tournament, and that is the tournament. It's a competitive tournament, but that's where it's not one of the karate strategies is to teach children is not to be better than others, to be I'm the first, you're the second, I'm the third, the kind of typical competitiveness, but to empower them. And also, the spirit of karate is to be better today than you were yesterday. And that's what this tournament is about. I invite them to come and to shine, show off their gifts, impress their families, to impress their friends and relatives, but also have the moment and be a part of the group where they belong, and have the moment when they shine, where they show their ability versus being reminded about their disability, which happens a lot in their lives. And that is the goal of this tournament. Last time we did it, we had 72 competitors, 72 students, and those are the smiles when they receive their trophies. And we talk
Yeah.
about the hard work, because we have a big trophy for the first place. There is Ruth; she got the big trophy, and then second place middle trophy, and a third place little trophy. So we talk about what does it take to receive a big trophy. You have to work hard, focus in the class, um, also work extra at home. So that really inspires and instills the that they can achieve, that they can be successful, versus just being acknowledged and. So that's the big celebration we have, and we have a Texas Adaptive Sports and Recreation nonprofit who kind of sponsors that. It's a friend of mine who also runs a school like that in Austin, Texas. Myself, we kind of run this nonprofit to support events like this one, to provide scholarships for if people can't attend or can't pay the class fees. And what's super special about this one, in this 2021, first four students from my school are going to receive, or they're having their test on the 15th. And if they pass, which I hope they do, and they will be ready, they'll be promoted to the black belts.
Oh,
And
awesome.
that when black belt level is, so there are three schools who are participating in the tournament. My schools, Beyond Karate, the One World Karate from Austin, and Texas Ishinu Karate Kai in Denton, which is far suburbs in Dallas. So there are three schools that we come together and offer this opportunity to our students. And the four students, it's a historic, and that's the part why I'm talking to you, because we wanted to share our story, to that this is the
Yeah.
time, because these kids, black belt level, it's a master level degree, to and those kids, those four young adults, and that includes Nikki, my daughter,
Oh,
and then another student, Jordan, who started with her 8 years ago, and two other students. So two students with Down syndrome and two students on the autism spectrum are, and they've worked really hard and they mastered the curriculum all the way from the white belt to the black belt, and they that is a great celebration for all of us.
yeah, that is so cool. So, when you have this tournament, can people enter if they're not one of the schools, or do
Yes.
they have to belong? Okay.
No, you can. It's an open tournament. We actually have a couple of students who just registered because we've publicized that in a rec center where we teach. We teach. It's going to be at the local rec center in Richardson, and it's anyone can enroll, and can
Awesome.
anyone can come and observe as well.
And if I remember correctly, when I was first introduced to you, this is a one of a kind tournament, right? There's no, at least to your knowledge, there's no one else in the country doing this sort of
You
tournament
know,
and
I
doing
don't
what
know
you're
every
doing at your
single
school.
I don't know every single program out
Sure.
there, obviously, but yes. I don't know of any other tournament, karate tournament for individuals with disabilities that is competitive. That really they come and they show their forms, their katas, and it's not sparring. We don't do sparring, which is fighting each other. That's
Mhm.
the kind of a separate division of karate. They perform their forms, their techniques called katas, or and more they focus, more they do it in a crisp kind of a manner, higher scores. That's what they did at the Olympics. That's what
Right.
this year Olympics, where the karate was first time an Olympic sport, and that's there were two divisions, kumite, which is sparring. We don't do that, and there was kata performance, and that's what we do where the students go and they perform their kata, and there's 3 or 4 judges, and they award the points based on their ability. And we create divisions where people are kind of matched with their age, ability, and skill, so everybody has a fair chance of winning the first place.
That's fantastic. That is so impressive. And Vitek, I'm so thankful that you came on today and that you shared everything that you have shared with us. We do need to wrap up. Is there anything that you would like to say that you didn't get a chance to, or are there any last motivational words that you would like to say before we wrap up completely?
I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share our story. It's like these 4 students who've been working for last 8 years, twice, 3 times a week, coming to the practices. And this is the first time we are kind of sharing our story with the public, because I think these students deserve a little bit more of a spotlight, and their ability needs to be emphasized and brought out more, because people unfortunately do see disability first. And so I hope through this broadcast we can emphasize the ability that individuals with disabilities have as well, and they contribute and they enjoy, and this is the time to do that. So I'm grateful for you, and I thank you for having me today so we can share that story.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. So thank you to anyone who is watching. Make sure that if you watched this live, that you give us a hashtag live. If you're watching it in the replay, that you give us a hashtag replay. If you have any questions for Vitek, make sure to put those in the comments and I will be sure to get them to him. The website is beyondkarate.com, and I will pop that up really quickly. I think I can get it before our time is up at least. And let everybody know, but you can always go to that website on your own. And I so very much appreciate everyone joining us. Make sure to share this, make sure to like this, make sure to subscribe it. The more of those types of things you do, the more exposure this gets, the more exposure that Beyond Karate gets, and the better off for everybody. So thank you once again, Vitek, for joining me, and thank you to my audience for being with us today as well. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.